Can you believe we are already up to week 8 and very soon your part B of assignment number 2 will be due to be handed in, so I hope that you're commenting on team presentations already. There should be a recording already available on the Collaborate in case you missed it. Some tips on the Q&A discussion thread, and I think it's a fairly straightforward assignment anyway. Think about the way in which we approach discussions in the discussion threads for ideas of how you might critically assess other team threads. Now this week we were looking at some of the differences between conflict resolution and also peace building. Now the reason why I posted something on Rwanda was because I think it's a really good example of peace building, which is very much a long-term proposition. So if you look, for example, at that video on Rwanda, you'll see that 15 or more years later, people are still talking about it. Transformation of the economy, transformation of inequalities, also still remembering those who died and what happened and incorporating those as lessons learned. So peace building really goes to something very long term and the entire fabric of society. It tries to look at some of the underlying causes of conflict to make sure that something that sizable doesn't happen again. Kosovo is also a very good example of some long-term peace building. Now, when it comes to things like conflict resolution, that's a little bit different. That might say that there's been some sort of cessation of hostilities or even some kind of peace agreement, for example, and one that's held. I mean, we all know of peace agreements that don't hold in certain irretractable conflicts. So when it comes to conflict resolution, it might be an agreement that's held. However, those long-term causes of conflict and at times ongoing human rights abuses are still evident. So I think one good example for me that comes to mind might be the issue with Tamils up in northern Sri Lanka, for example, and the Tamil Tigers and the civil government in Sri Lanka. So whereas this civil war ended there, years ago, there is still, they're still on Human Rights Watch. There's still claims of torture. There's still claims of abuses. There's still claims of corruption when it comes to government. So certainly some of that those long-term issues that led to the conflict in the first place and some of the racial and ethnic tensions have not been addressed. So I would say that is an example of resolution as opposed to peace building. Anyway, that's just a few of my thoughts. There's so many out there, and it'd be nice to see people float a few more on the discussion threads. I know you're probably busy responding to team threads as a preference because naturally that's tied to your assessment, but still perhaps throw some of those ideas out there of what you're learning into the discussion threads so that we can all share the learning together and start working towards assignment number 3 that will focus on resolution, conflict transformation, peace building, those types of ideas. Thanks, everybody.